Hello friends, to your real horror channel about the most dangerous crimes. The crimes of Tommy Lynn Sells are the most dangerous serial killers. You won't believe the tricks he used to catch the victim. In 1992, Fabian Witherspoon, then 19, was wandering her way to her friend's apartment in Charleston, West Virginia, when she found a mutilated man under a bridge with a sign that said, "I'll work for food." The man showed her a picture of his wife and children, and she felt pity for him, so she invited him to her house to give him some food. But as soon as they entered the house, the man grabbed a knife, locked her inside the house, and then tried to rape her. Her survival instincts were triggered. She hit him in the head, then grabbed the knife and stabbed him repeatedly until he finally managed to smash the piano stool over her head, knocking her unconscious. The next thing she knew, she woke up in the hospital after undergoing surgery to treat a serious gash on her head and a deep gash on her hand. Her attacker was in the intensive care unit under police guard. Witherspoon had cut off the attacker's liver and kidneys and cut off his testicles. Tommy Lynn Sells was an experienced killer by the time Witherspoon met her. After serving 5 years in prison for assault and attempted rape, he continued to kill more people. How did Tommy Lynn Sells live his early childhood? There is no doubt that Tommy Lynn Sells had a difficult childhood. Born in Oakland, California, in 1964, he was one of 7 children of a single mother. He and his twin sister, Tammy, contracted spinal meningitis when they were 18 years old. Tammy died, but Tommy survived. According to the Clark County District Attorney's Office, by the age of 7, Sells was drinking alcohol from his grandfather's storeroom. At age 8, he had a relationship with an adult man who, Sells said, sexually assaulted him at the encouragement of his mother. At the age of 10, he was smoking marijuana. 3 years later, when Sells was 13, he walked naked into his sleeping grandmother's bed, sending his shocked family out of the house in Missouri without saying goodbye. Sells was left to fend for himself. Because of this abandonment, Sells then embarked on a cross-country crime spree spanning more than 20 years. "The first time I did drugs, it was the best feeling of my life. And the first time I killed someone, it was a very exciting feeling," Sells later told ABC News. "It was like, every time I did it, it was that excitement again. And I started chasing that euphoria." Witness the most horrific and heinous crimes he committed. He committed more than 70 crimes. For more than 2 decades, Tommy Lynn Sells has traveled the country, working odd jobs, making out in various ways, and committing heinous crimes along the way. He used to call himself the coast-to-coast killer. In the end, Sells was only convicted of 2 murders. But he confessed to several killings, and cops believe he committed a total of 22 murders. Sells also claimed to be responsible for more than 70 crimes. According to Associated Press, former Texas Rangers point guard John Allen stated, "We have confirmed 22, I know there are more. I know there is a lot of crime. Obviously we will never know." Keith Dredden's family. After killing Russell, he raped his wife, Ruby Elaine, and bludgeoned their 3-year-old son to death with a bat. Following a call received by the police at 911 on the evening of November 18, 1987, a team of investigators went to the home of Mr. Keith Dredden, located in the village of Ina, Jefferson County, Illinois, USA. This Mr. Keith had been absent from work for a while. There, investigators found the battered bodies of Mrs. Eileen Dredden, the wife of Keith Dredden, who was in forced labor next to her fetus after she had been severely beaten with a baseball bat while she was gagged and tied. They also found the child, Peter Dredden. He was also crushed by the same stick that was in the possession of the homeowner, Keith Dredden, who was not present at the crime scene. The police found out that the deceased were all brutally beaten to death, as was the condition of the fetus. The police assumed at first glance that the husband, Keith Dredden, was involved in this horrific crime due to his absence from the crime scene, so they began searching here and there until they found him, in turn, shot dead on a farm, with his head cut off and his genitals amputated. Then, after years of investigation into the case of the murder of the Keith Braden family, which stirred up the White House, the press, and American public opinion, the case that revived the arms markets, the trade in iron windows and fences, dog breeding, and the camera trade in most of the city of Illinois, and its environs. In fact, in most of America, so they said. After years of anticipation and waiting, the investigations reached a dead end, the police forces exhausted all leads, and the case was registered against an unknown person. Joel Kirkpatrick. In October 1997 in Lawrenceville, Illinois, 10-year-old Joel Kirkpatrick was stabbed to death in his room while he slept. His mother, Julie Ray Harper, said she ran into her son's room and found a man wearing a ski mask. She resisted him, and he fled the house, leaving a knife from the kitchen on the floor outside Joel's room. But authorities didn't believe Rhea Harper's story at first. There were no signs of the struggle she described, or of forced entry into the house. They considered her the primary suspect, and in 2000, she was charged with first-degree murder. The prosecution alleged that Joel was the focus of a violent conflict between Rhea Harper and her ex-husband. While the case against her depended almost entirely on the circumstances, she was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 65 years in prison. By the time Rhea Harper was convicted, Tommy Lynn Sells was already in the police department for another murder. When Diane Fanning, a true crime writer, was working on a book about seals, she wrote to him in prison. To her surprise, he responded with details about the crime that he could only have known if he had been there. Fanning brought the letter to the Texas detective who worked on Sells' case, and in 2003, authorities interviewed Sells about Joel Kirkpatrick. He confessed to the crime, confirming the details of Rhea Harper's story. Rhea Harper's conviction was overturned after she served 2 years in prison. Prosecutors tried to try her again, but her defense played Sells' tape-recorded confession in court, and she was found not guilty. Nor has a formal charge been filed against Sells in the murder of Joel Kirkpatrick. Cordette's family. In July 1985, Tommy Lynn Sells was working at a festival in Missouri, where he met Ina Court and her 4-year-old son, Rory. According to Sells, Ina invited Ida to her home, where they struck up a relationship. Sells says that when he woke up, he found Ina trying to steal his bag. He then beat her to death with her son's baseball bat and also killed Rory, as he might have been a potential witness. The bodies of Ina and Rory Court were found 3 days later, after Sells had left town. Susan Kurz. In May 1987, Susan Kurz disappeared after leaving a bar in Rockport, New York, alone. Her body was found near Niagara Falls 8 years later. Sells confessed to the crime in 2004, according to Radford University research. Stephanie Kelly. In October 1987, 21-year-old Stephanie Kelly Strode disappeared after hitchhiking in Nevada. Sells said he picked her up and offered her a ride to Reno. According to Sells, he strangled her and threw her body into a hot spring. Her body was not found. Mary Beatrice Perez. On April 18, 1999, 9-year-old Mary Beatrice Perez was kidnapped from the annual Fiesta Festival in San Antonio, Texas. A week later, police found her body in a stream. She had been raped and choked to death with her shirt. Tommy Lynn Sells confessed to Perez's murder in 2003 and was sentenced to life in prison in addition to his previous death sentence. The murder of Kaylin Harris, which led to his arrest. On December 31, 1999, in Del Rio, Texas, Tommy Lynn Sells committed the gruesome murder of 13-year-old Kaylin Harris in her mobile home. He broke into the house, raped her, cut her throat and stabbed her 16 times. Sells had befriended the Harrisas after meeting them at a local church, and had visited their mobile home several times. he knew that Kalen's father would be out of town that night. What Sells didn't realize was that Kalen's friend, 10-year-old Crystal Searles, was at Harris's house for the night, and was sleeping in the top bunk above Kalen. When he realized she was there, he cut her throat too, but Crystal survived. "He reached out and cut my throat," Crystal said, according to Crime Library. "I stayed there and pretended to be dead. If he knew I was alive, he would definitely come back and kill me." Sells left, believing both girls to be dead. Crystal was able to get up and walk a quarter-mile with her trachea to a neighbor's house to get help. She was taken to a hospital in San Antonio and underwent emergency surgery. While Crystal Searles' injuries were serious, she recovered well and quickly helped police create a picture of Searles to distribute to family and friends. Sells was quickly identified and arrested. "It only took 10 minutes for Sells to destroy our family," Terry Harris, her father, told the Kansas City Star, as reported by Crime Library. "He stole our daughter's achievements, every birthday, every holiday. I'm consumed with grief for trying to help Tommy. I spoke to him. He was someone who was having bad luck and I tried to help him. He returned the favor by killing my daughter." Sentencing Tommy Lynn Sells. In 2000, Tommy Lynn Sells was sentenced to death by a jury for the murder of Katie Harris and was sentenced to death in Texas. His time of terror was finally over. Shortly thereafter, he pleaded guilty to the murder of Mary Beatriz Perez in 1999, receiving an additional life sentence. He also confessed to dozens of other crimes, although many of the crimes he admitted to were not officially linked to Sells or even confirmed to have occurred. Searles was executed by lethal injection at the Texas State Prison in Huntsville on April 3, 2014. Crystal Searles attended his execution, along with members of the Harris and Perez families. While Sells declined to make a final statement, his feelings about his crimes were clear in an interview with ABC News in 2010. "I hate it. When you look at me, you look at hatred," he said. "I don't know what love is. Two words I don't like to use are love and sorry." Distinguished journalist Stefan Burguin. One day, Tommy whispered vague words from inside the death cell in a Texas prison to the distinguished French journalist and specialist in serial killers, Stefan Burguin. "Do you know, Sir Stefan? You must be responsible for yourself, even in killing. You bear your responsibilities in everything. This is the most important step for you in life." Then Tommy went on to say, "In your opinion, for example, who is responsible for the crime of breaking into a place? Is it the criminal or the owner of the place who always forgets his keys in any place?" This is roughly what he said. Then, in a question from the French journalist to him about why he killed the children after killing their mother, Tommy said, "If the mother is gone, it is difficult to leave the children suffering in such a world. I do not know if I committed a shameful act against the children, but what I do know is that they are now in bliss. In a better place, where there is no place for pain." It is worth noting that before we close the paragraph related to this distinguished journalist, it is worth pointing out that Stephen Burguin, the French specialist famous for his investigations into serial murder cases around the world, has many books on field criminology and investigative methods, and was able to interview more than 80 serial killers. In America and the world, it should be noted that he, too, was a victim of a serial killer in 1976 when he found his wife, Elaine, raped, murdered, and dismembered one evening in their apartment in Los Angeles in the United States, where Stephen Burguin, this outstanding French scientist, lived. Returning to the hero of our case, Tommy Lynn Sells, he later confessed to criminal investigators to a large series of murders that he committed from the late 1970s until December 31, 1999, which is the date of his last crime for which he was sentenced to death, and it is also the same criminal act that specialists consider the last murder. Sequentially, from previous implication and surveillance, occurring in the 20th century. We stopped at the point when Mrs. Nina Sells expelled her son, Tommy Sells, from her life permanently after the bathroom incident in the city of Arkansas. At this time, and after Tommy found himself living on the side of the street, the hero of our criminal case carried out 2 successive killings using a pistol in an accidental dispute between him and 2 people on drugs said it was a legitimate defense. He carried out another killing in the city of St. Louis in 1983, and then the crimes continued until New Year's Eve, December 31, 1999. At the end of the video, do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell to receive the most important videos that you have not heard before, and do not forget to share your comments. See you.